following program on Ada Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations.
Tonight, we discuss the protection of fauna and flora in Sri Lanka. Does Sri Lanka have adequate legislature to enforce conservation? And how do recent judgments mold the future of Sri Lanka's protection efforts? A very good evening and thank you for taking the time to join us on yet another episode of Law, Land and Liberty, where we bring to you key legal concepts and break it down for the layman. Now, tonight's topic is a very timely one and it's relevant to every one of us watching tonight, and that's on the environment and the protection of fauna and flora in Sri Lanka. Specifically, we just passed Environment Day as well, but as we all know, in the country right now, the environmental situation is not that great. So to talk about this and also about current judgments that we have seen unfolding in this specific segment, we are here to talk about someone that I believe is best suited for this topic, and that is Dr.Ravindranath Dabare. Thank you very much, Doctor, for taking the time to speak to us today on this very timely topic.
Thank you, Anuradha, for inviting me.
Of course. Doctor, before we get into the discussion, here's a little bit of an introduction on exactly who this guest is. He is a very distinguished figure. He is the chairman of the Environmental Subcommittee of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. He's also the senior advisor for the Centre for Environmental Justice. Safe to say we're in good hands with this discussion. But before we get into the discussion, here is an outline of how we're going to approach this topic. First, we'll be talking about the basics, the fundamentals of environmental law and the protection of fauna and flora, and also the current context as well. Next, we'll be getting into the legislative specifics like the judgments unfolding in real time. And finally, we'll be talking about the future of environmental protection in Sri Lanka.
I'm a student of Sri Lanka Law College. My question is on the fundamentals. What legislature exists for the protection of flora and fauna in Sri Lanka?
All right, well, without any further ado, let's get right into the discussion. Once again, Doctor, thank you very much. Timely topic, a lot to discuss as well. But before we get into any of the nitty-gritties and the specifics, I believe it's important to provide a little bit of a context into the situation as well. So, having just passed Environmental Day, could you give us a little bit of your opinion and your thoughts on exactly what we are facing in the country at the moment in relation to the environment?
Actually, thank you very much for inviting me, Anuradha, for your discussion forum at this moment and during this time where the world is celebrating its Environment Day, as well as we all as a country are facing a lot of environmental disasters such as floods. Environment is very close to us because although it is taught that environment is something surrounded by us, actually, according to my belief, around the environment is not something surrounded by us. Actually, environment is actually we are a part of environment, because the air which we breathe in, which is just in front of us, will be a part of our body and part of us within few seconds. And the water which is maybe sometimes in Kalani River or sometimes maybe in Mahavali River will be ours when we take it. So likewise, and even when we breathe out, our part of our body or the part of our which we actually the air which was in with our body will be a part of the environment. Likewise, we cannot separate ourselves and environment each other, because therefore any effect on the environment or any illness, I must say, suffered by the environment is felt by us, because we are part of the environment. Therefore, we have to take these things seriously, and when dealing with the environment, or when something is taking place which affects the environmental health, we have to be very careful, because in turn it will affect our health. That is what has happened these days. Even the floods, we are facing floods because we have not taken care of the environment, and we have started building houses and buildings and filling lowlands Those things matters a lot for the floods and especially deforestation. Anuradhi, sometimes we are facing floods here in Colombo, but deforestation which has taken place in the outstations, sometimes maybe hilly areas. As a result of deforestation, the rainwater which reaches the ground directly flows to the river without absorbing it, and with the soil erosion after deforestation, it directly reaches the river, which cannot bear that amount and that volume, and therefore damages the whole surrounding. If the trees are there, it slowly, while absorbing, it reaches the river and does not do any harm and reaches the sea slowly. So likewise, the effects of our acts are now hurting us, because when we are hurting environment and we are distorting and we are destroying environmental health, definitely our health will be affected, and our health will be seriously not affected, seriously affected. Not only our health, our health of our future generation will be seriously affected, and the cost of health sometimes will be more higher than the benefit that few people are reaping as a result of environmental destruction, or sometimes maybe deforestation.
Right. We see that there is a lot of malicious activity being carried out, and that can directly correlate to our current situation as well. Doctor, a question of curiosity. Do you believe that our threshold for environmental disasters has reduced over time because of the fact that we have been doing such practices?
Yes, actually we should be held responsible for the existing disasters and existing threats faced by the mankind, not only the mankind. Now, Anuradhi, when there are floods, you know how many other living beings are affected. Even sometimes we see, even sometimes some photos are circulated, even the Facebooks, even the dogs sometimes are left when they are seriously affected. Even they just take some money and some foods and leave the houses. Not when we are thinking of dogs, how many other living beings which are in the forests or which are living in other ecological cycles are affected, because not only our lives are at risk, even other lives, innocent lives, sometimes they have not contributed anything to the environmental destruction, but we are destroying them also because of the activities of the mankind.
Exactly. And now that we have a context into how dire our current situation is, specifically when considering the current flooding and the absolute state that we've left the environment in, and how the repercussions are actually reflecting back on us as a species, I believe it's important for us to get a little bit of more legal context as well. Now, we've seen that there's a lot of misdeeds being done, but is there legislative mechanisms in place to actually help curb such malicious behavior? And because of that, we should definitely talk about the key legislatures. Can you give us a little bit of an overview, Doctor, into the current environmental laws that are in place in Sri Lanka, and have a little bit of a focus on the fauna and flora protection aspect as well?
Yeah, actually, when we are referring to the law, the main law of this country, Anuradhi, you know, is the Constitution. The Constitution, although does not specifically identify or gives clauses which strengthen the right of environment, or right to environment, right to healthy environment, but there are some clauses, important clauses in the Constitution, which we have to take look at. Actually, the section, the Article 28F of the Constitution imposes a duty on each and every of us to protect the environment. And 27 subsection 14 also cast a duty upon all the government arms and the government bodies to protect the environment. Therefore, those constitutional provisions should be given effect to according to the recent judgments and according to the existing law of the country. In addition to the constitutional provisions, we have a lot of other statutory provisions which deals with the protection of the environment, such as National Environment Act, which is the umbrella act which deals with the environmental protection. Actually, it deals with the soil pollution, the prevention of soil pollution, prevention of air pollution, and prevention of water pollution, which can be treated as the main causes and main aspects of the pollution that are taking place around us. And in addition to that, there are some provisions in the penal code from section 261 onwards, which deals with the environmental protection, and even some punishments are also very clearly laid down under these provisions if anyone does any act which affects the environment and the rights of the environment of others. And in addition to that, there are some important provisions in Criminal Procedure Code. Under the section 98 of the Criminal Procedure Code, there is an offence, or there is a provision dealing with the public nuisance. You know, Anuradhi, any environmental destruction, if it affects the health of the public, can be treated as a public nuisance. Now, for instance, if a fume is generated from an activity, it's an act which affects the public health, and therefore can be dealt under the section 98 of the Criminal Procedure Code. If the water is polluted as a result of any act, that water, the pollution of that water affects the health rights of the public, and therefore within the purview of the public nuisance. Likewise, even the soil pollution, like all major issues relating to the environment pollution are covered under the section 98 of the Criminal Procedure Code. Therefore, those are even under the Criminal Procedure Code. If you make a complaint to the police is also empowered to deal with such issues. Therefore, it's very easy if you have any issues which affects your health rights, or if any act causes annoyance on you, you can go to the police and make a complaint either under section 98 of the Criminal Procedure Code or under section 261 of the Penal Code. So, the police should take cognizance of it. And in addition to that, there are various other acts, such as Nuisance Ordinance is another very old act. It is actually emanated in 1862 during the British rule, deals with the minute matters, even minute type of pollutions which affects the rights of the others which affects the health of the public. And even Municipal Council Act, Urban Council Act, and the Pradeshi Sabha Acts are also having provisions specially to deal with the environmental provisions, and especially to maintain the drains and the lowlands and the industries. So, therefore, if you observe any act which affects the environmental right and environmental health of the public, you have to take cognizance of these issues and these matters under the provisions of the Constitution, and as well as under the provisions of the acts that I have already mentioned.
Exactly. So, that just shows exactly how intrinsically we are with the environment. Even under public nuisance, we have to consider that when hurting the environment, we are also hurting part of ourselves, and that is very clearly reflected in our legislature as well. Now that we have a bit of a context into how the environmental destruction aspects can be addressed in legislature, I believe we have to look into a little bit of the wildlife aspect as well, Doctor, because that's also part and parcel of this entire discussion. If you could walk us through a little bit of the key pieces of legislation that we have seen come into power, come into place in relation to the protection of natural habitats and also wildlife, Doctor.
Yeah, those are very important, Anuradhi. Actually, that's one of the very serious issue that we also have to look into, because we have two main acts which deals with the fauna and flora. One is the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, the other one is the Forest Ordinance. Because although Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance deals with the wildlife and trees, but the Forest Ordinance is also there to protect the forest. The forest, of course, actually contains 90%, more than 95% trees. Sometimes even a lot of species and various other type of living beings are also there, and some water bodies are also there in forest land, such as lakes and the ponds. But majority is consisting of trees. Therefore, those two acts and the piece of legislations are very important to look into. So, according to the Sri Lankan law, the forests are especially of four types: conservation forest, reserved forest, and village forest, and other state forest. Those are the four types of forest which are found under the Forest Conservation Ordinance. The strict protection is afforded to the conservation forest, and even reserved forests are also afforded a strict protection. Even anyone who enters into the conservation forest and the reserved forest are permitted only to enter for the observation and scientific research purposes. The person who enters into such type of forest are not even permitted to take a leaf out of the forest or from trees lying in those areas. And other state forests are also specially protected. Even you can't remove any plant or anything, even you can't harm or damage any tree. Those provisions are there under the section 20 of the Forest Ordinance. In addition to that, Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance is also very important. And Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance divide the trees and the other living beings into two sections. So, other living beings are especially protected mammals, protected birds, even vertebrates, and likewise categorized into different categories. But we get a special section to protect elephants. From section 12 to 12 onwards, we get lot of area is devoted to the protection of elephants.
Doctor, I believe that is, unfortunately I have to cut you off because we have run out of time in this segment, but I believe the protection of elephants is something specifically we have to discuss as well when it comes to the writ that we have seen surface recently and the judgments in relation to protection of elephants. I believe it would be best to touch in detail on that. Before we go into the discussion on the protection of elephants and the specifics in that for the FFPO or the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, let's take a very short commercial break. You're watching Law, Land and Liberty. We'll be right back.
Silva, and I'm a student of Sri Lanka Law College. My question is on the current context. Do the recent judgments in this field contribute enough positive change?
Welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty. We are in discussion with Dr. Ravindranath Dabare. And Doctor, we just embarked on a very momentous segment where we understood the basics of environmental protection and the context of environmental degradation, and I believe it was the perfect segue for us to actually discuss about the current matter at hand as well. We were just talking about the FFPO, the Fauna and Flora Protection Act Ordinance, and talking specifically about the protection of elephants. Unfortunately, I had to cut you off in the previous segment. If we could elaborate further on what you were trying to explain, Doctor.
Actually, Anuradhi, elephants are treated as keynote species, one of the main keynote species in this country, because in this country it is the largest species we can find on the land. But we have a very serious issue known as human-elephant conflict. And in addition to that, there is another issue, because some people are intended or inclined to have animals as a gesture of pretending their status. So, as a result of that, smuggling of elephant and illegal capturing of elephant takes place in a considerable manner and considerable context. Recently, actually, there were a lot of complaints. Recently there was a judgment, but I should describe the history of this issue or the history related to this particular judgment. Even we heard a lot of illegal registering and capturing of elephants were taking place somewhere close to 2008, and especially from 2005 and up to 2015 it was seriously this was taking place. The government which came into power in 2015 initiated some investigations into these allegations and opened up 48 files by the Criminal Investigation Department under the direction of the courts and with the help of Department of Wildlife. So, as a result of that, custody of 39 elephants were taken back by the Department of Wildlife. But again, while investigations were going on, again there was a government change. Now, after that government change, some parties, those who were arrested and those who were investigated, were very close associates of the government which came into power after 2019, and they wanted somehow or the other resolve this issue, and they took some cabinet decisions, as well as they promulgated, or they actually prepared a gazette notification enabling this illegally captured elephant to register as legally captured elephants. So, along with us, there were 3 other parties who went to courts and wanted to quash the validity of this gazette notification, which enables the registering of illegally captured elephants. And we challenged that gazette notification, and while challenging, we challenged certain decisions taken by the Attorney General Department as well as by the ministers of cabinet. So, the cabinet decisions which have already paved the way for the releasing of illegally captured elephants. So, when the investigations were going on before the chief magistrate, when on a day where the chief magistrate was on leave, 13 elephants were released on a motion filed by the Criminal Investigation Department, and one such elephant even was owned by the former president. So, likewise, 13 elephants were released out of 39 elephants on a single day when the matter was taken before the additional magistrate when the chief magistrate was absent. And we challenged that also in the courts. So, recently the court pronounced the judgment and it was a very important judgment. It very clearly emphasized the liberty of the elephants, and there was an objection because this matter deals with the elephants. How can the layman come before the court and make an application on behalf of the elephants? The court has said that elephants are a group of species who cannot
advocate for themselves.
Yeah, advocate for themselves and present their grievances before the judges. Therefore, human beings are entitled and they are permitted to come before the court on behalf of the elephants. And even the court has also gone into the rights of the other animals, such as birds and all type of captured animals. Sometimes even when we put the birds in a cage and sometimes observe their voices or noises as singing, but the court says don't know whether they are expressing their grievance, although we term it as the birds are singing.
Exactly, it could be signs of distress.
Yeah, sometimes even the elephants are even expressing their maybe sometimes we observe it as the dancing elephants, but maybe sometimes they may be expressing their displeasure and even with the sounds and their movements. So nobody knows. So therefore, the court has gone into that extent and state that we as humans are not entitled to decide what is expressed by these animals. That actually is a very positive move towards the protection of animal rights, not only the elephants but the rights of all animals. Even the court has gone into the cabinet decision and decided the cabinet decision is illegal. The cabinet decision taken is contrary to the main act, and even that criticized the Attorney General Department also. The Attorney General Department has acted beyond its power and beyond its expectation, because beyond the expectation of the public. Attorney General Department is paid by the public, and there is some expectation by the public how the Attorney General Department should behave in public matters, and especially the prosecutions when the discretionary powers are vested on them. Those things are very seriously criticized, and the Court of Appeal has gone into a lot of issues faced by the society, especially in relation to the animal rights, and even in relation to the powers of the cabinet and the duties of the Attorney General Department. That is why this judgment is treated as a very proactive and the positive judgment.
Exactly. Is it unprecedented, this judgment, Doctor, in your opinion? Have we seen such a robust judicial ruling?
Yeah, this is unprecedented judgment. This can be because herein before we have not observed this type of a judgment which emphasize the need of protecting and actually upholding the rights of elephants as well as other animals, and even the ownership of animal and the elephant is not something that actually can be very clearly defined, because although we claim that we are the owners, that is also not something actually defined, because how can we own animals who prefer to live in wild, and especially how can we earn money utilizing them in commercial purposes? Sometimes the logging and even various other things we earn money. Are we entitled to earn money using animals? That is also seriously criticized, because that particularly at the very first page, that particular Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance very clearly says this act is to curb utilization of animals for the commercial purposes. But that particular gazette which was released in 2021 very clearly paves the way for the utilization of elephants for the commercial purposes. Those are contrary to the main act.
Exactly, it's directly contradicting, and I believe there was mention from the petitioners as well where the regulations violated the Constitution. Could you please give us a little bit of insight into the case, the argument that was made by the petitioners in this case, Doctor? Yeah,
because our main argument in this matter, the petitioners stated that the decision by the cabinet of ministers of cabinets to quash the previous registration regime which was introduced by the Gazette notification issued in 1991 is illegal, because we are of the view, the petitioners were of the view, that 1991 registration should be there because it paves the way for the registration of legally entitled or legally possessed elephants only. But the government or the then ministers of cabinet wanted to quash that particular Gazette notification and replace it with another Gazette notification which permits or which allows the illegally captured elephants to be registered by the owners and registered by the Department of Wildlife. That will have serious repercussions, and if that is permitted, there will be a lot of harm on the elephants, and the persons who wanted to capture the elephants will start killing the mothers and capturing baby elephants, and there will be a havoc, and there will be a lot of catastrophes in the forest. So we vehemently object, stating that this pave lot of illegal acts and especially violation of the fauna and flora protections, and the court upheld that and actually quashed the validity of the new gazette notification and stopped registering the elephants under the new gazette notification after carefully perusing the provisions and after upholding the argument put forward by the petition.
Exactly. With all the effective responses made to this argument by the petitioners and the actual response made by the judicial system in the protection of environment in Sri Lanka, and also specifically the protection of elephants as well, in your professional opinion, Doctor, with the judgment that was delivered, do you believe that it was effective enough to balance the protection of wildlife when it comes to the cultural aspects as well and legal considerations?
Yeah, actually they have suggested even a method of using elephants for the cultural purposes, even especially have a set of animals, those who are trained, or pool-like thing, elephant pool, especially trained for the purpose of cultural pageants. And when there is a request made by the organizers of those cultural pageants, the government can release and then take back. Those type of things, suggestions and mechanism is suggested. Therefore, I don't think that new judgment will prohibit the utilization of elephants for the cultural purpose, and even most of the petitioners are not going to actually obstruct that cultural aspect, but they are especially of the view that they should somehow or the other prevent this illegal capturing and killing of animals as well elephants, and even using them for commercial purposes without looking into their well-being.
Right. So we could see that the court decision has made a positive impact on the protection of elephants, but it hasn't outright restricted the importance or the significance of elephants in our cultural context as well. Do you believe that the balance is adequate, Doctor, or is there room for improvement?
Yeah, the court also has done a lot of things and even gone beyond its purview, but we know that although the court has to do a lot of things, and the court can do a lot of things, but it has some limitations, because certain things have to be decided by the legislature and the administration. But the court has given a very good guidance for the future activities, especially in relation to the management of elephants by this particular judgment.
Right. Then I believe that in its limited scope, much has been done and it has struck as best of a balance as it possibly could. I believe we can understand through the judgment, so I believe our viewers can rest assured that this judgment would strive for a more positive impact on the protection of fauna and flora, specifically elephants in Sri Lanka. I believe we have to talk about the future implications of this judgment when it comes to the conservation of wildlife in Sri Lanka, as well as the future of environmental law in Sri Lanka as well, specifically in the context of the ever drastically changing environment and the climate factors that globally affect us as well. But before we get into any of those specifics on future implications, let's take a very short commercial break. You're watching Law, Land and Liberty. We'll be right back.
I'm an IT student. My question is on the future. How can Sri Lankan legal landscape help shape a more constructive dialogue on the protection of fauna, and Flora.
Welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty. We're in our final segment in discussion with Dr. Ravindranath Dabare. We were talking about environmental conservation and the Fauna and Flora Protection Act, and more specifically into the protection of elephants and the recent judgment that we have seen passed, unprecedented judgment as well. Now we have to look at the optics of the future, Doctor. Before we get into the global context, I believe we still have a little bit left to discuss on the judgment as well, specifically directly relating to the judgment. Could you tell us a little bit about what you believe the future implications will be to Sri Lanka's environmental protection through this judgment?
Actually, we must thank you very much, Anuradhi, for that question. We must especially bow down and thank to Honorable Justice Sobhita Rajakaruna and to Honorable Justice Dhammika Ganepola for delivering that historical judgment. Especially based on that judgment, there will be a serious turn on the protection of environmental as well as especially on the protection of elephants and animal rights, because the protection of animal rights and the environmental rights are interconnected. And especially as a result of the pronouncement of this judgment, the illegal capturing of elephant and the rearing of animals, especially the elephants, will be seriously regulated, and we hope that there will be a drastical reduction of capturing elephants and the killings of mothers just to capture the baby elephants.
Right, that is the direct hope of the implication that we hope that the judgment will have. Doctor, when it comes to the actual Fauna and Flora Protection Act, we have to consider the penalties aspect as well, which we weren't able to touch on in the previous segment. When it comes to penalties, do you believe that the already existing penalties in the legislature are adequate, or is there room for improvement?
According to the existing legislation, what I feel is there should be an increase of the penalties, as well as certain laws has to be amended according to the existing context. Now, for instance, especially now we as a country, we experience the world's largest marine disaster with the Express Pearl disaster. So after that only we noticed as a country the important amendments to the marine protection regime has not been introduced by the country. But even after the lapse of or passing of 3 years of that particular disaster, as a country we have not been so far able to do the or include the necessary amendments. Therefore, there is a serious lacuna and then the serious lapse of amending the environmental legislation, although the governments are very expeditiously attending to certain other legal amendments which are in the economical region, or sometimes which affects the government economy, and sometimes which affects the poor people. But the environment is not so important to lot of governments to make the required changes. That weakness we are observing. If the governments and the rulers are taking the required attention and interest in amending the environmental legislation to mesh or to be in par with the global environmental legal regime, it would be very useful for the protection of environment in this particular island, and especially will be useful to right the environmental rights of the future generations.
Exactly. It has to have future progress as well. It's not just for present appeasal. We have to consider the future of the continuance of our nation and its biodiversity as well. Doctor, you mentioned about being in standard with global norms and global practices. Do you believe that when considering in an international context, we fall in an adequate position when compared to the rest of the world, or do we really have a lot more ranks to climb up before we are adequate?
We have a lot more to climb up and to achieve, because certain areas with the development of the international environmental law are not yet even touched by our legislature and our rulers and our organizations, especially who are responsible for the environmental protection. Because we know that environment protection has become a very serious topic and a hot topic in international arena with the global warming and especially with the environmental disasters faced by the world these days. Especially with the climate change, some countries all over the world have now faced serious repercussions, and there are a lot of even lot of discussions. Some of our rulers and some of our politicians are also now engaged in a lot of international conferences and discussions, but practically they are not taking any required measures to protect the environment and to be in par with the global standards and the global actions. Because we have to reduce the global warming and the greenhouse gases as a country. We have given a lot of international pledges, but sorry to mention that we have not taken adequate steps to achieve those pledges. I don't know, the future rulers or the future generation will have to be responsible before the international conferences and the international regime and before the world why they have not taken adequate steps, although they have made number of pledges.
Right, and we just saw as well when it comes to the global context that the climate watchers have seen that the past 12 months were the highest temperatures recorded ever. So we've just had the hottest year on record as well. So clearly the international context plays into our context as well. And specifically when you mentioned the international aspects of upholding agreements or understandings that we have signed with other nations and other corporations when it comes to the protection of the environment and also climate conservation. Doctor, what are the biggest challenges that we see in the local context when it comes to enforcing such regulations?
Thank you, Anuradhi. That is very important, because the main issue faced by our countries an island with limited land resources. That's the main issue. But those land resources are not wisely utilized, because we see a lot of deforestation. Sometimes this deforestation is taking place only for the cultivation of commercial crops. But in this country, you know, Anuradhi, 33% of the land out of this particular island is underutilized agricultural lands. While there are a lot of underutilized agricultural lands, we are in the process of deforestation and destroying the valuable forest. Even some of the politicians are helping this in order to expand their water banks in the districts. So when the persons and the helpers of the politicians, they come and ask for the lands for the cultivation, they just keep on dividing and bequeathing the state lands, and deforestation continues in the midst of international pledges to increase the forest. We have, as a country, we have pledged to increase the forest cover, but locally, if you look at the villages and if you look at the surrounding, what happens is severe deforestation. That's the reality.
That is the issue that we face currently. There's a lot of force against the...
So what I believe is, as a country, first of all, we should have a land use policy, and in that particular land use policy, special areas should be demarcated as lands for the crop cultivation. The forest land has to be clearly demarcated, and the lands for the elephants, lands for the forest and various things, has to be clearly demarcated. Otherwise, this because we being a very small country, small piece of a land, we cannot go on like this. Without having a proper land use policy and constructing elephant electric fences haphazardly and starting cultivation haphazardly from here and there will create serious environmental issues.
Exactly. If we are to think about the future of our nation, we have to tread carefully and actually consider what limited resources we have and ration them so that we don't have any unexpected implications in the upcoming or the prolonged future. Unfortunately, Doctor, our time with you here today runs out. I believe we had a very constructive discussion and our viewers at home would have had an understanding on exactly how important it is that we are aware about the conservation efforts that are taking place in our country and how it will affect all of us in the long run. Thank you very much, Doctor, for taking the time.
Thank you, Anuradhi, for inviting me.
All right, well, the importance of protecting our fauna and flora is not a matter to be taken lightly, as the future of Sri Lanka depends upon the maintenance of our ecological biodiversity, and we each have a responsibility of being wary of any injustice in this field. We leave you tonight with the words of American writer and philosopher Aldo Leopold. Conservation is a state of harmony between men and land. That's all we have for you tonight on Law, Land and Liberty. If you had missed any of our programs, you can always rewatch by catching us on our YouTube page, youtube.com/otherderana English. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.